The sound of the restaurant door opens, and a soft voice calls out, "Sorry, we're late." Avery looks up, confused, expecting the waiter to announce someone else's arrival. But instead, two little girls, no more than 6, walk in, holding hands. They're dressed in matching pink dresses, their eyes wide with the wonder of the world around them. One of the twins, Maya, looks directly at Avery, her face beaming. "My daddy's sorry he's late," she announces, matter-of-factly. "But we brought flowers." Avery's heart skips a beat as they glance at the waiter, who seems just as stunned. The atmosphere of the evening shifts. Avery stands to greet the girls, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, let us begin. Avery was sitting alone at a candlelit table in a high-end restaurant. The silence of the nearly empty room contrasts with the bustling city outside, where couples and individuals pass by in a blur. Avery's fingers nervously trace the edge of the wine glass, the quiet ticking of the clock reminding them how much time has passed since the blind date was supposed to start. Avery had agreed to the date in the hopes of overcoming the heartbreak of a past failed relationship. But now, with each passing minute, the hope of something meaningful feels more distant. They glance at the menu one more time, then back at their phone, where they've received a few unread messages from friends checking in. The waiter offers an apologetic glance as he clears away a plate that had been untouched. Avery shakes her head, half laughing at the absurdity of it all. Why am I even here? They wonder. The feeling of being here because it's the right thing to do gnaws at their chest. Love feels like a distant memory, they think, swirling the wine in their glass absent-mindedly. They're just going through the motions. Meanwhile, Daniel, the father of the twin girls, is running late. His life, as he sees it, is a whirlwind of missed opportunities and unsaid words. The sound of a baby's cry echoing in his mind, he sits in his car, gripping the steering wheel, wondering if he's making the right decision. He's late for a date, the first he's had in months after a messy divorce and a long stretch of self-imposed isolation. What am I even doing? He thinks. I don't know what I want, but I have to keep trying. For them. For me. In the back seat, his twin daughters, Maya and Lily, are sitting together, quietly observing his father's nervousness. They don't know it, but the weight of his absence in their lives has been weighing heavily on him. His questions about where he's been and why he hasn't been around have become increasingly difficult to avoid. And yet, in his heart, he's afraid to confront the emptiness that their questions open up. He's trying to change. He has to be. As the car pulls into the parking lot of the restaurant, Daniel's thoughts spiral. He can feel the pressure building. He grabs the hand of Maya, who's quietly holding a small bouquet of daisies she'd picked earlier. She had insisted it was for the new friend they were meeting, unaware of the weight of her innocent gesture. Avery stands frozen for a moment, the shock of the moment still lingering in the air. The twin girls, their innocence and exuberance palpable, move closer to the table. Avery can barely form a coherent thought, still reeling from the unexpected arrival. The waiter, equally caught off guard, stammers before stepping away, sensing the awkwardness settling in like a heavy fog. Maya, the older of the two by a mere few minutes, holds out the small bouquet of daisies toward Avery with an earnest smile. "We picked these just for you," she says, her voice clear and confident despite the oddity of the situation. Lily, the quieter twin, clutches the hem of her sister's dress, glancing up at Avery with wide, trusting eyes. Avery, unsure of how to respond, kneels to their level, reaching out slowly to take the flowers. The soft scent of the daisy seems to snap them back to reality, but the awkwardness doesn't disappear. Their eyes flicker between the two little girls, then past them, searching for their father. A moment later, the unmistakable sound of hurried footsteps echoes behind them. A man, disheveled, yet familiar-looking, emerges from the hallway. Daniel. He looks just as lost as Avery feels. "I'm so sorry." Daniel's voice is strained, as though he's rehearsed this apology 1,000 times in his head, but still hasn't found the right words. He takes a step forward, his eyes lingering on Avery for a fraction too long before turning to his daughters. "Maya, Lily, it's okay, we're not interrupting." But Maya, ever the determined one, shakes her head. "We said we were sorry," she replies, her voice firm yet sweet. "We told you we should always say sorry when we're late." Avery watches, a knot forming in their chest. The sight of this man, disheveled yet clearly trying his best, hits them unexpectedly hard. There's something so raw and human in his apology, in the way he's fumbling through this situation. For the first time in a long time, Avery feels a flicker of something they haven't felt in years. Connection. Daniel's eyes meet Avery's, and for a moment there's a silence that stretches uncomfortably between them. He clears his throat, trying to regain some composure. He says, "I'm sorry about this," again, glancing at the girls. "I didn't know they'd come in like that." Avery forces a smile, shaking their head. "It's fine," they reply, though the confusion and uncertainty are still evident in their voice. "It's just a surprise." "You're Avery, right?" Daniel asks, a hint of uncertainty in his voice as he steps closer. There's a moment of quiet recognition before Avery nods, but it's not a confident nod, more of a reluctant acknowledgement that yes, this is the person they've been waiting for, though this is nothing like they imagined. The silence between them grows thick. Daniel shifts uncomfortably, watching his daughters as they continue to fidget around the table, unaware of the tension hanging in the air. Lily pulls at her dress, then looks up at Avery with her lips parted, as if she's about to say something. "I think you look nice," Lily says, suddenly, her voice soft but sincere. The words land like a small bomb, shattering the tension in an instant. Avery can't help but laugh, a soft chuckle escaping them. The simplicity of the moment feels disarming. How something so innocent and unguarded can break through layers of uncertainty and hesitation. Avery looks down at Lily, grateful for her sweetness. "Thank you, Lily," Avery says, their voice softening. "You look very pretty, too." Maya, not to be outdone by her sister, chimes in. "My daddy says girls should always look nice, like princesses." She glances up at her father with a proud smile, as though she's passing on an important piece of wisdom. Daniel chuckles, shaking his head. "Well, I never said princesses exactly," he mutters, his smile wry. He looks at Avery, his face softening. "They've got a way of turning things upside down, don't they?" Avery nods, a small smile tugging at their lips. They glance between the two girls, then back at Daniel, unsure of how to navigate the emotional whirlwind that suddenly pulled them into this small, impromptu family drama. The intensity of their eyes meeting isn't lost on either of them. Daniel, for all his nervousness and hesitance, seems like he's trying to connect, He's not just apologizing for being late, he's apologizing for everything else that has led up to this moment, though neither of them fully understands it yet. Avery's heart beats faster, but they can't quite figure out why. The air between them is thick with unspoken words, with the weight of past mistakes, missed chances, and what could be something more. The children's innocent remarks linger, not only disrupting the moment, but forcing both adults to reflect on the vulnerabilities they've long buried. "Listen," Daniel says after a pause, his voice more earnest now. "I didn't mean for this to happen, but I think I need to explain about me being late, about everything else." Avery nods, their heart pounding now for a completely different reason. "What do you think happens when two people, strangers at first, are brought together in an unexpected way? Could love emerge in such a strange moment? Share your thoughts in the comments." The girls, oblivious to the heavy air between the adults, begin to fidget with the menu. Daniel steps back, running his hand through his hair in frustration. "It's just this whole thing. I've been messing up a lot lately. I wasn't sure what to expect from tonight, and honestly, I wasn't sure about anything. But I didn't want to let you down." Avery's mind is racing. This wasn't the blind date they expected. It wasn't even close. The vulnerability in Daniel's words catches them off guard, and they can feel something inside them stir, something they thought they had long ago lost. Hope. Avery takes a slow breath, trying to steady their thoughts. "You're not letting me down," they say quietly, their voice soft yet genuine. You're here, and that's more than I expected too." For a moment, Daniel simply looks at them, his expression a mix of relief and something deeper, maybe hope, maybe fear. And in that moment, Avery realizes they don't have to have it all figured out. Sometimes it's enough just to be present. The moment hangs in the air like the fragile sound of a heartbeat. Daniel's words, the raw honesty of them, are still vibrating in the space between him and Avery. But Avery feels a strange unease creeping in, a sense of disconnection that has little to do with the presence of the girls or the quiet intimacy of the table. It's an inner resistance, a defensive wall, built up over years of heartbreak and disappointment. They look at Daniel, his gaze searching theirs, and a flood of emotions rushes in. Avery can't quite place them all, but one thing is clear. This situation, this unexpected twist of fate, is asking them to open up, to trust, to be vulnerable again. And the idea terrifies them.
Avery clears their throat, turning away just a little, glancing at the half-finished drink in front of them. "You don't have to explain yourself," they say, the words more forced than they intended. "We're all just here, I guess." The coldness in their own voice surprises them. They weren't expecting to pull back, but something about Daniel's presence, the weight of his apology, the suddenness of the moment, it all feels too much, too fast, too vulnerable. Daniel takes a step back, eyes flicking toward his daughters, who are obliviously playing with the napkins at the table. His expression falters for just a second, as if he's unsure of whether he should push further or let the conversation slip into the void of awkward silence. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," Daniel says softly, almost too quietly. There's a look of embarrassment creeping up his face now. He scratches his jaw, his hand trembling just a bit. Avery looks at him, the compassion there, but also a shield, a wall built from years of letting their heart get stomped on. "No," they say, shaking their heads slightly. "It's fine, really. I just didn't expect any of this." The words feel like a withdrawal, a protective measure. Avery looks at the girls again, their innocent energy somehow highlighting the tension that's grown too thick around them. Maya's telling Lily some story about a dog they met in the park, and Lily, her eyes wide with innocent wonder, is completely lost in the tale. Their presence, so pure and full of life, only amplifies Avery's inner conflict. Daniel shifts uncomfortably in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "I get it. It's strange. He pauses, biting his lip as he catches Avery's distant gaze. I wasn't expecting any of this either, but I'm not just here for a date. I'm here because, well, I'm trying to do better. For them, for myself. His voice falters, and for a brief moment, Avery can see the cracks in his confident exterior. He's not just a father showing up late. He's a man carrying the weight of failure, of regret, and perhaps of a second chance. Avery wants to reach out to offer some kind of comfort, but they can't. Not yet. They can't let the guard down. Not when they fought so hard to build it up over the years. Love feels so far away, a foreign concept they can no longer believe in. The last time they let someone in, it ended in betrayal and silence. So why would this be any different? They take another sip from their wine, their gaze a little unfocused, as if they can push away the emotions that are creeping in. They can't understand why this moment feels so important, but it does. And that scares them more than anything else. Daniel watches Avery, sensing the distance, the hesitation. He's been through enough pain to know what that look means. It's the look of someone who has been hurt too many times, someone who's built up walls to keep the world out. He doesn't want to push. He knows that kind of vulnerability can't be rushed, but the truth of his feelings, the weight of his choices, presses on him, making it hard to breathe. Avery clears their throat, turning away just a little, glancing at the half-finished drink in front of them. You don't have to explain yourself, they say, the words more forced than they intended. We're all just here, I guess. The coldness in their own voice surprises them. They weren't expecting to pull back, but something about Daniel's presence, the weight of his apology, the suddenness of the moment, it all feels too much. Too fast, too vulnerable. Daniel takes a step back, eyes flicking toward his daughters, who are obliviously playing with the napkins at the table. His expression falters for just a second, as if he's unsure of whether he should push further or let the conversation slip into the void of awkward silence. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, Daniel says softly, almost too quietly. There's a look of embarrassment creeping up his face now. He scratches his jaw, his hand trembling just a bit. Avery looks at him. The compassion there, but also a shield, a wall built from years of letting their heart get stomped on. No, they say, shaking their heads slightly. It's fine, really. I just didn't expect any of this. The words feel like a withdrawal, a protective measure. Avery looks at the girls again, their innocent energy somehow highlighting the tension that's grown too thick around them. Maya is telling Lily some story about a dog they met in the park, and Lily, her eyes wide with innocent wonder, is completely lost in the tale. Their presence, so pure and full of life, only amplifies Avery's inner conflict. Daniel shifts uncomfortably in his chair, running a hand through his hair. He bites his lip as he catches Avery's distant gaze. I get it. It's strange. He pauses, biting his lip as he catches Avery's distant gaze. I wasn't expecting any of this either, but I'm not just here for a date. I'm here because, well, I'm trying to do better. For them. For myself. His voice falters, and for a brief moment, Avery can see the cracks in his confident exterior. He's not just a father showing up late. He's a man carrying the weight of failure, of regret, and perhaps of a second chance. Avery wants to reach out to offer some kind of comfort, but they can't. Not yet. They can't let the guard down, not when they fought so hard to build it up over the years. Love feels so far away, a foreign concept they no longer believe in. The last time they let someone in, it ended in betrayal and silence. So why would this be any different? They take another sip from their wine, their gaze a little unfocused, as if they can push away the emotions that are creeping in. They can't understand why this moment feels so important, but it does, and that scares them more than anything else. Daniel watches Avery, sensing the distance, the hesitation.
He's been through enough pain to know what that look means. It's the look of someone who has been hurt too many times, someone who's built up walls to keep the world out. He doesn't want to push. He knows that kind of vulnerability can't be rushed. But the truth of his feelings, the weight of his choices, presses on him, making it hard to breathe. The evening stretches on, the weight of unspoken words and missed opportunities hanging heavily over the table. Maya and Lily are playing with the menu items, delighting in the simplest of games, guessing the shapes of the patterns on the tablecloth, imagining they're spotting animals in the designs. Their giggles echo in the space between Avery and Daniel, a stark contrast to the tension that refuses to loosen its grip. Avery tries to smile, but it doesn't quite reach her eyes. They're on autopilot now, responding politely when necessary, but mostly lost in their own swirling thoughts. The weight of the evening is starting to feel like too much, the pull between desire for connection and the instinct to protect their heart clashing within them.
Daniel watches them quietly, his mind racing. He knows that the emotional chasm between them is widening. He feels it in the subtle distance Avery keeps, the way their body language stiffens when he speaks, the way they glance at the door as if considering an exit. His daughters are his world, but they don't fix everything. He's been so focused on them that he's lost sight of what it means to connect with someone else, especially someone like Avery, who seems so distant yet oddly familiar. He can feel the invisible pull between them, but every time he reaches out, it's like Avery takes a step back. The waiter approaches to clear away the empty plates, interrupting the heavy silence. He gives a polite nod, then walks away, leaving the four of them in a limbo of sorts. It feels as if everything is at a standstill. Then, unexpectedly, Maya speaks up, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. "Daddy, can we sit next to Avery?" she asks, her eyes wide and hopeful. "I think they look lonely. Can we play a game with them?" Daniel blinks, caught off guard by his daughter's words. He glances at Avery, gauging their reaction, but Avery is silent, staring at Maya for a moment too long before looking away quickly. "Sure, sweetheart," Daniel says, a small, awkward smile tugging at his lips. "Let's move over there then." He stands first, then pulls out a chair for Lily and helps her settle beside Avery. Maya slides in next to Daniel, bouncing slightly in her seat as she looks at Avery. "What should we play?" she asks, her voice full of energy. "You look like you have good ideas." Avery, still unsure, hesitates for a moment before nodding, their throat dry. "I guess we could play I Spy?" They offer the suggestion as if it's a weak compromise, unsure how to re-engage, but also not wanting to completely shut down Maya's enthusiasm. Maya's face lights up. "I spy with my little eye something blue," she exclaims, looking around the table and pointing directly at Avery's shirt. Avery's chest tightens at the innocence of it, at how easy this should be, but how complicated it feels. He glances at Daniel, whose eyes are watching them carefully. It's not just the girls who are pressing them. It's him, too. They feel the pressure of the evening pushing them into this forced intimacy, this proximity they don't quite know how to navigate. The game continues, but it's no longer about the game itself. The simple exchange of words becomes a vehicle for deeper, unspoken conversations. Conversations about what Avery wants and what they fear. Every time Daniel's eyes flicker toward them, they feel the weight of something they aren't ready to confront. The walls they've built around themselves are sturdy, but Daniel's presence is slowly making them crack, one small piece at a time. After a few rounds of I Spy, the game naturally winds down. Maya, her energy unspent, shifts in her seat. "Daddy, are you going to stay with us forever?" she asks suddenly, her words pure and untainted by the world's complexities. The question hangs in the air like a stone, weighted with more meaning than anyone could have anticipated.
The evening has settled into a strange rhythm, one that neither Avery nor Daniel entirely understands, but both are forced to follow. The small, intimate table has become a stage for unspoken truths, awkward pauses, and fragile attempts at connection. The twin girls are playing on the floor now, their laughter a constant backdrop to the quiet conversations between the adults. Avery can feel the weight of their own guarded heart, yet there's a shift in the air. Something between them is starting to unravel. As the night wears on, the silence between Avery and Daniel feels more charged than ever. Avery watches the flickering candlelight, their mind buzzing with questions they don't want to ask, emotions they don't want to confront. But the more they try to distance themselves from the reality of the moment, the more they're pulled back into it. The presence of the twin girls, their unfiltered energy, their belief in simple, unconditional love, reminds Avery of a time when they believed in those things too. Daniel, sensing the growing discomfort, decides to take the initiative. He can't ignore the tension that's building between them anymore. He knows that if he doesn't speak, things will only become more strained, and that would be the end of any chance they might have of truly connecting. He gathers the courage to lean forward slightly, meeting Avery's gaze. "Do you mind if I tell you something?" he asks, his voice quiet but steady. There's an edge of vulnerability in his words, as if he's bracing for Avery's response. Avery doesn't answer right away. Instead, they look at Daniel for a moment longer than necessary, wondering if they're prepared to hear whatever it is he's about to say. The walls that had built up so carefully over the years are beginning to show cracks, and they're not sure if they're ready for this. Still, something compels them to nod. "Go ahead," Avery says softly, the words feeling both an invitation and a challenge. Daniel takes a deep breath, his fingers briefly brushing the edge of his glass. He's stalling, but only for a moment. I wasn't always like this," he begins, the words coming out slowly, like he's testing their weight. "I wasn't always the kind of father I should have been." Avery's gaze flickers briefly to the twin girls, now lying on their stomachs on the floor, coloring with crowns. Their innocence seemed almost out of place in the midst of the conversation that's unfolding. Daniel's words hang heavy, and Avery feels a lump rise in their throat. They had no idea what kind of man Daniel was, what kind of past he carried. The idea of him being lost didn't match the fatherly image they'd seen earlier, the man who tried to step in despite everything. Daniel continues, his voice thick with regret. "I didn't know how to be a good partner. I didn't know how to be a good dad. When Maya and Lily's mom and I split up, I was a mess. I was angry, bitter. I blamed myself for everything falling apart. And in the process, He pauses, his jaw tightening, the weight of his confession pressing on his chest. I wasn't there for them the way I should have been. I let the guilt and the shame eat me up." Avery stays silent, absorbing his words, feeling the sting of recognition. They know that feeling, that spiral of guilt and shame that drags you down into places you never meant to go. They've lived through it too. The fear of being inadequate, of losing the people you love because of mistakes you can't undo. The quiet pain of trying to fix something you're not sure can be fixed. Daniel shifts uncomfortably in his chair, his eyes looking down at the table, but the vulnerability remains in his posture. "I don't think I really understood how much I was hurting my girls, how much they needed me, not just as a father, but as someone who could show up. And I wasn't. I was so wrapped up in my own failures that I forgot what it meant to be there." Avery feels their heart tighten at the rawness of Daniel's confession, at the weight of the regret that's now laid bare between them. They're not sure why Daniel is opening up now, not sure what he expects from them, but they can feel the authenticity in his words, the truth that stings more than either of them expected. Avery exhales slowly, their voice barely above a whisper. I get it. I know what that feels like. The guilt, the shame. They look at the table, their fingers tracing the rim of their wine glass. The words seem to slip out before they can stop them. I've spent years hiding from it, pretending I didn't care, pretending I was fine. Daniel looks up at them, sensing the shift in Avery's tone, the hesitation, the reluctance to let go of the facade. There's a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "And you don't have to pretend here," he says gently. "You don't have to hide it, not with me." Avery's heart races, a mix of emotions swirling within them. Daniel's words feel both a gift and a burden, an invitation to share a piece of their own history, to expose the cracks they've kept hidden. But the thought of vulnerability, the thought of opening up to someone else is terrifying. After everything they've been through, after the years of protecting themselves, they can't help but wonder if it's worth it. Can they trust him? Can they trust anyone? Avery looks up at Daniel, their gaze meeting his for the first time, with a depth of sincerity that neither of them was prepared for. I had someone once, someone I loved more than anything, but I pushed them away. I couldn't handle the fear of losing them, so I ran. I chose to be alone because it felt safer. Avery stops, swallowing back the emotion that's threatening to break free. And now, I don't know if I can ever trust anyone again. Not like that. The room feels smaller now, as if the walls have closed in, the silence amplifying the rawness of their shared confessions. Daniel doesn't respond immediately. He just sits there, his eyes searching Avery's face as if looking for some kind of answer, something that will reassure him that this, whatever this is, can be more than just a moment of vulnerability. After a long pause, Daniel finally speaks, his voice steady, yet full of empathy. "I know it's hard. Trust isn't something you can just give away. But sometimes it's worth it to try again, to allow yourself the chance to love without fear." Avery's breath catches in their throat, their heart pounding in their chest. Daniel's words settle deep inside them, finding a place where they've long buried their fears. And for the first time, Avery wonders if maybe, just maybe, they've been running from something they could still have. Something real. Have you ever struggled to trust someone after losing someone important? How did you learn to open up again? Share your experiences in the comments. The heavy weight of the moment hangs in the air for several seconds after Daniel's words. Avery feels their chest tighten, the quiet beating of their heart echoing louder than anything in the room. There's a profound stillness between them, the kind that happens when two people have let down their guard, even if just for a brief moment. It's almost as if time itself is holding its breath, waiting for either of them to make a move. Avery, caught between fear and something they can't quite name, looks down at their hands, which are nervously twisting a napkin on the table. The vulnerability they've allowed to surface feels too raw, too dangerous. And yet, there's something else, a strange warmth, a flicker of connection they haven't felt in years. It's uncomfortable, but in the best way. The sound of Maya's laughter breaks through the tension, innocent and light, as she shows Lily a drawing she's made on the back of the menu. It's a rough sketch of a house, with flowers growing around it and a smiling sun in the corner. My Avery's heart does a strange flip, and for a moment, they forget about the adult complexity surrounding them. The simplicity of the girl's joy, their unburdened innocence, feels like a balm to the emotional storm that's been building. Daniel watches Avery, his gaze soft, understanding. He doesn't speak right away. Instead, he lets the silence sit. It's a quiet acknowledgement of their shared fragility, and for the first time that evening, it doesn't feel like something to be feared. It feels like a bridge between them. "Do you know," Daniel says after a long pause, his voice gentle, "I used to be so afraid of being close to anyone. I thought if I let anyone in, I'd lose myself. But now, with Maya and Lily, they've shown me that there's more to life than holding everything in." Avery meets his gaze, surprised by the weight of his words. There's something about the vulnerability in his voice, the way he's not shying away from the truth of his own pain, that feels like permission. Permission to stop hiding. Permission to let down the walls they've spent so long building. "I don't know how to do that," Avery admits quietly. "How to let someone in without worrying that they'll hurt me, that I'll lose myself in the process." Daniel's eyes soften, his expression knowing. "I get that, I really do. I'm not perfect. I've messed up more times than I can count. But I'm here, trying, because I've learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about being real, being honest with the people you care about." Avery's chest tightens at his words. They hadn't expected this kind of rawness, this openness. It's the kind of vulnerability they haven't allowed themselves to experience in so long. And yet, it feels strangely freeing. Maybe it's because Daniel isn't trying to fix them. He's simply showing up, offering what he can. The weight of the moment finally begins to settle, the rawness of their shared confessions giving way to something else, a tentative bond, a bridge that's slowly forming. Avery feels a strange sense of relief, as if the emotional burden they've been carrying for so long has been lightened, even if just a fraction.
Maya and Lily, completely oblivious to the emotional depth unfolding at the table, continue their game of drawing pictures and making silly faces at each other. Their laughter fills the air, light and unburdened by the weight of the conversation. The contrast between the innocence of the twins and the vulnerability between Avery and Daniel is striking. It's like two worlds colliding, one filled with untainted joy, the other with the complexity of adult emotions. Avery watches the girls for a moment, then turns back to Daniel. There's something in his eyes, something genuine that makes Avery pause, makes them reconsider the walls they've been so determined to keep up. For the first time in a long time, Avery feels the slightest inkling at hope. Not the kind of hope that promises everything will be perfect, but the kind that suggests it might be possible to rebuild what was lost. It's a small flicker, but it's enough to make them wonder if they've been wrong all along about keeping people at a distance. Avery exhales slowly, the weight in their chest lifting just a little. I guess I'm not as afraid as I was," they admit quietly, "but I'm still not sure how to let someone back in. I'm still scared." Daniel smiles softly, the corners of his eyes crinkling as if he understands exactly how much it costs to say those words. "I'm not asking you to jump in, Avery. I'm not asking you to forget the past or ignore the hurt. I'm just saying that sometimes letting someone in doesn't mean erasing the past. It means accepting that we're all broken in some way, and that's okay." Avery feels something inside them stir, an echo of the old desire for connection, the one that they buried so deep in the past. Maybe they can let someone in. Maybe they don't have to be alone forever. For the first time, it feels like the possibility of something more is within reach. Maya, sensing the shift in the mood, looks up at Avery with a grin. "Are you feeling better now?" she asks, her eyes full of hope. Avery can't help but smile. A real smile this time, not just the polite kind they've been offering all night. "Yeah," they say softly. "I think I am." Lily, who's been silent until now, holds up her drawing, proudly showing off a crude but heartwarming image of a house with a heart in the middle. "We're all happy now," she says, her voice full of the kind of innocence that only children can possess. "See? Happy house." Avery laughs, the sound light and genuine.
They glance at Daniel, who's smiling too, his eyes filled with a quiet gratitude that seems to say, "We're getting there. We're both getting there." The connection between them is still fragile, still new, but it feels real now. It's not perfect, and it may never be, but for the first time in a long time, Avery feels something they've almost forgotten: the simple beauty of being seen, of being heard, of being understood. Have you ever found a connection with someone when you least expected it? What was it about that moment that made you open up? Share your thoughts in the comments.
The night is heavy with the kind of silence that only comes after a shift, a moment where everything feels like it could either collapse or expand, depending on the choices made. The soft hum of the restaurant fades into the background, and for a while, Avery and Daniel are left alone with their own thoughts, each of them navigating the delicate space between fear and hope. Avery's chest tightens as if a storm is brewing within them, a mixture of doubt and desire battling for dominance. They felt something tonight, something real. The emotional walls they've spent years building have started to crumble, but there's a nagging fear in the pit of their stomach that they can't shake. What if it's all too late? What if Daniel, this man who seems so sincere, is just another person who will let them down? What if they've allowed themselves to believe in something that was never meant to be? The quiet, innocent chatter of Maya and Lily fades into the background as Avery shifts uncomfortably in their chair, their fingers absently tracing the edge of the glass. They glance over at Daniel, who is speaking softly to the girls, a tender smile on his face. He looks at ease. His presence feels grounded, steady, like he's finally found some semblance of peace. But Avery can't help but wonder, how long will that last? A thought cuts through the fog in their mind, sharp and jarring. What if I'm just a rebound for him? The idea lingers, an unsettling possibility that they haven't allowed themselves to entertain until now. Avery's heart races as the doubts begin to flood in. How could I have been so foolish? They glance at Daniel again, his face lit up by the soft glow of the candlelight, but all Avery can see now is someone who might not be who they thought he was. As the night drags on, the tension between them begins to shift. Avery can feel it in their bones, like the quiet before a storm. They've been walking this fragile line, this fine balance between vulnerability and defense, and now, with every passing minute, the weight of their own fears and insecurities is starting to tip the scales. Maya's voice cuts through the heavy silence. A simple question, one that seems innocent enough on the surface. "Daddy?" Maya asks, her small voice bright with curiosity. "Why didn't you want to be with us before?" The words hang in the air like a shot fired, piercing the moment. Avery freezes. Daniel too stirs in his seat and the atmosphere shifts dramatically. It's not just the question, it's the vulnerability in Maya's voice, the rawness of a child's desire for understanding. Daniel's face falters, his eyes flicking to Avery for a split second before looking back at Maya. The truth, it seems, is a weight too heavy to carry. I just didn't know how," Daniel says, his voice low, the admission filling the space between them. "I was lost, Maya, and sometimes when people are lost, they make bad decisions." Avery's heart skips a beat at the fragility in Daniel's voice. For a moment, they see him not just as a man sitting across from them, but as a father trying to piece together his broken world. But there's a sharp sting in the pit of their stomach. Is that all this is? A man who's just lost? The question lingers, unanswered. Avery turns away, their eyes darting to the door as if they might find an escape there. The room feels too small, too suffocating. The walls that have already cracked now threaten to break wide open, and Avery isn't sure they're ready to face the truth. Not yet. Not when the possibility of being let down seems so real. "Do you regret it?" Avery asks suddenly, the words spilling out before they can stop them. Daniel's eyes widen, surprised by the sharpness in Avery's tone. His gaze flickers with confusion, then pain. He opens his mouth to respond, but stops short, as if weighing how to answer something that has no easy reply. "I don't regret my girls, Avery,"
he says softly, his voice heavy with sincerity. But I regret the time I lost with them. I regret not being the father I should have been. Avery's heart aches at the raw honesty in his words. The pain in his voice is real, but it's not enough to quell the storm inside them. They want to reach out, to comfort him, to tell him it's okay, but the words die on their tongue. It feels like too much. Too soon. They're not ready to expose their own scars, their own regrets, and certainly not to someone they still barely know. Instead, Avery stands abruptly, their chair scraping against the floor as they take a step back from the table. The motion is sharp, almost jarring like a reflex. Maya and Lily look up at them, their faces confused, but Avery doesn't stop. They move toward the door, their pulse pounding in their ears. "Wait, Avery," Daniel calls, his voice strained. He stands up quickly, reaching out as if to stop them, but something in Avery's expression makes him pause. They turn to face him, their face tight with a mixture of pain and frustration. "You can't just fix everything with words, Daniel. You can't just come in and act like everything's fine, like nothing's broken. People don't just change because they say they're sorry." The words spill out, raw and bitter, the hurt that's been buried for so long now coming to the surface. Daniel's expression falters, and for a brief moment, Avery sees the pain in his eyes, pain that mirrors their own, the confusion, the fear, the regret. "I'm not trying to fix anything," Daniel says quietly, taking a hesitant step toward Avery. "I'm trying to be here, with you, with my girls, if you'll let me." But Avery is already shaking their head, the walls they've built so carefully now rushing back into place. "I don't know if I can, Daniel," they say, their voice trembling. "I don't know if I can let you in. Not like this. Not again." The words hit Daniel like a blow. For a moment he stands frozen, unsure of what to say, unsure of how to bridge the gap between them. The silence stretches, thick and suffocating. Finally, Avery turns away, their hand on the door handle. "I need some air," they whisper, more to themselves than anyone else. As the door closes behind them, Daniel stands in the middle of the room, his chest tight, his mind racing. The girls look up at him, their faces confused by the abrupt end to the evening, but Daniel can't bring himself to explain. He knows that Avery's doubts, Avery's fear are more than just a reaction to the night. They're the remnants of old wounds, old scars that have never healed. And as the door shuts behind Avery, the finality of it feels like the first crack in what might have been a fragile chance at something more. The cool night air hits Avery's face like a rush of cold water, sharp and bracing. They step outside the restaurant, the door clicking shut behind them with an almost finality that rings in their ears. For a brief moment they stand there, eyes closed, trying to breathe through the overwhelming swirl of emotions threatening to drown them. What had they just done? Their heart pounds, every beat a reminder of the emotional turmoil inside them. They could hear Daniel's voice, soft and pleading, echoing in their mind. "I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm trying to be here." But Avery can't shake the feeling of suffocation. The walls they'd so carefully built around themselves are cracked, the foundation crumbling under the weight of his words, his vulnerability. It's all too much. Too soon. Too real. Avery leans against the brick wall of the building, their hands trembling slightly as they press them against their face. The sting of tears threatens, but they hold it back. I can't do this. Not again. The echoes of past heartbreak flood their mind, the relationships that started with so much promise, only to disintegrate into disappointment and betrayal. Trust had always been a delicate thing for Avery, and the thought of letting someone in, of actually letting someone close, feels like standing on the edge of a cliff with no guarantee of solid ground beneath their feet. But still, something inside them won't let go of the thought of Daniel, of the genuine vulnerability in his eyes. For a fleeting moment they had felt something warm, something real. But now all they can feel is the cold bite of fear. Avery? The sound of Daniel's voice from behind them cuts through the tension like a knife. His tone is hesitant, but there's something deeper there too, something that sounds almost like a plea. Avery doesn't turn around at first. They can hear his footsteps coming closer, slow and measured, as if he's afraid to invade their space. "I didn't mean to push you," Daniel continues, his voice soft, almost fragile. "I know I've probably done a million things wrong tonight, and I don't know how to make it right, but I just wanted to be honest with you. I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Avery's chest tightens again, but this time it's not with fear, it's with something else. Something that's been buried deep inside them for so long that they almost forgot it existed. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, they can let someone in. Hope that maybe, for once, they won't be abandoned. Hope that despite all the mistakes, despite all the pain, maybe there's a chance for something different. They finally turn to face him, their backs still pressed against the wall. Daniel stands a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, his posture open but hesitant. His eyes search Avery's face for any sign of where they stand, but Avery isn't sure how to answer. The weight of the decision hangs heavy. "I can't promise you that everything will be easy," Daniel says, his voice steady but raw. "I can't promise you that I'll be perfect or that I won't hurt you, but I can promise you this. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to do the hard work, to show up, to be the person you need me to be."
Avery swallows hard. The words hit them harder than they expected. They had built up so many walls, told themselves for so long that they didn't need anyone, that they could go through life alone. But hearing Daniel's words, hearing his sincerity, makes him question everything. "I don't know if I can trust you, Daniel," Avery admits quietly, their voice thick with emotion. I don't know if I can let you in. It's too hard. It hurts too much to open up." Daniel nods, his expression softening. "I get that, I do. And I'm not asking you to do anything you're not ready for." He steps a little closer, but still keeps a respectful distance, his voice low and tender. "All I'm asking is that you let me be here for you. No pressure, no expectations, just honesty. Just being here when you're ready." The simplicity of his words cuts through the fog of Avery's doubts like a beam of light, and in that moment, something shifts. The fear is still there, of course, but it's not paralyzing. Not anymore. Avery knows that trusting Daniel won't be easy, and it certainly won't be perfect. But maybe, just maybe, it's worth the risk. Avery takes a deep breath, and for the first time, they allow themselves to fully look at Daniel. His eyes are searching, hopeful but not demanding. There's a sincerity in his gaze that makes Avery's heart ache. "I don't know what this is or where it's going, but maybe we can figure it out. Maybe we can take it one step at a time." Daniel's expression shifts in an instant as the weight of his own fears and doubts slowly lifting as relief washes over him. He steps closer, his eyes warm with a quiet joy. "One step at a time," he echoes, the promise feeling more like a foundation than a mere phrase. Avery nods, their breath steadying. In this moment, there's a flicker of something, a connection, a bond that's fragile but real. And for the first time in a long time, Avery feels like maybe they don't have to be afraid anymore. As Daniel closes the distance between them, the air between them still charged but softer now, Avery lets out a breath they didn't realize they'd been holding. Maybe love doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe it doesn't even have to be easy.
But it's worth the leap, worth the risk. And as Daniel reaches out, taking their hand gently in his, Avery feels something they haven't felt in years, a glimmer of hope. The night is still uncertain, still full of questions and unknowns, but it's also full of possibility. The future may not be clear, but for the first time in a long time, Avery knows they're not alone in facing it.
They stand there for a moment, just outside the restaurant, the cool night air swirling around them. But for once, it doesn't feel suffocating. For once, it feels like a breath of fresh air, like the beginning of something new, something that hasn't yet been defined, but already feels worth the effort. Daniel's eyes are still locked on Avery's, his hands still holding theirs gently, as if afraid that any sudden movement might break the fragile bond they've just begun to forge. His face is open, vulnerable in a way that makes Avery's heart ache with something close to tenderness. There's no rush in his movements, no pressure to make this moment anything more than what it is, a small step forward. "You don't have to say anything else," Daniel says quietly, his voice softer now, almost reverent. "I know we both have a lot to figure out, and I'm not asking for anything more than your honesty. I'm not asking for perfection." Avery nods, their heart racing, but this time it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like something else, something they've been missing for a long time, something they never thought they'd be willing to give: hope. "I'm scared," Avery admits, their voice trembling slightly, though it's not out of panic. It's the vulnerability that has been pushed to the surface, something that feels terrifying and liberating all at once. "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to let someone in, but I don't want to keep running." Daniel smiles softly, his thumb gently brushing the back of Avery's hand. "You don't have to know all the answers right now. I'm right here, Avery. You don't have to run. Not anymore." The words settle between them like a promise, a small but significant step forward. There's no pressure, no rush to figure everything out at once. It's just a simple commitment, a commitment to be present, to be real with one another, to take the journey as it comes, step by step. As they stand there, the sound of the world around them fades. Avery feels the weight of the past slowly begin to lift, even as they know it will take time to fully heal. But tonight, something has shifted. Tonight, they've allowed themselves to believe that maybe, just maybe, they're not alone. That maybe, with Daniel, they can find something more than what they've always been afraid of. Something real. Something worth fighting for. "You said you wanted to try," Avery says, their voice steady now, a small smile playing at the corners of their lips. "Well, I think I want to try too. I'm willing to see where this goes, if you're still willing to take the risk now with me." Daniel's smile is gentle but full of warmth, the kind that speaks volumes without needing words. "I'm willing," he replies simply, squeezing Avery's hand a little tighter. In that moment, Avery realizes how much they've been missing, not just from Daniel, but from life itself. They've been so focused on protecting themselves, on avoiding the pain that comes with vulnerability, that they've forgotten what it feels like to truly connect, to let someone in, even when the risk feels too high. The weight of their decision is not lost on them. They know it won't be easy. There will be moments of doubt, of fear, of old wounds resurfacing. But for the first time, they also feel something else, something that has been buried beneath all the walls they've built for so long. Possibility. The sound of laughter drifts from inside the restaurant, where Maya and Lily are still happily coloring, oblivious to the emotional roller coaster that has unfolded just outside. Their innocence, their pure joy, serves as a quiet reminder of what it means to trust, to believe in something without fear of it being broken. Avery takes another deep breath, the air around them feeling lighter now, as if it carries the weight of both their fears and their hopes. They glance at Daniel, his expression open and kind, and for the first time tonight, it feels like there is no doubt, no hesitation, just a quiet, steady promise that things can be different. "Maybe we'll start with one step at a time," Avery says softly, looking up at him with newfound determination. "And maybe, just maybe, that'll be enough." Daniel nods, his eyes filled with something close to admiration. He's not perfect, and neither is Avery. But in this moment,
They found something that transcends the past, something that feels like it might actually last. We'll take it slow, Daniel agrees, one step at a time. The sound of the restaurant door opening behind them breaks the quiet between them, and the twins' excited voices drift out, calling for their father. Maya's face lights up when she sees Daniel, and Lily follows suit, her smile wide and genuine. Avery watches the girls for a moment, the joy in their innocence infectious. Their laughter, unburdened by the complexities of adult life, reminds Avery of something simple yet profound. That love, in its purest form, doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. And in that moment, standing here with Daniel, with the twins, Avery realizes that maybe, just maybe, real is enough.